Welcome back to the Flying Focus third Busiversary. Tonight on this program, Dan and Moss are going to start with a tape that they co-produced. So let's let them introduce it.
Yeah.
So this show, I guess it was basically not really a tribute, but it was kind of showing what, looking back on Nixon, the Nixon years, and seeing what Nixon did for and to the country.
Yeah, we did a lot of research for this show, and we spent a lot of time criticizing the mainstream media. And what you'll see in this clip is we kind of stood here in the studio and superimposed in the background some footage from Nixon's funeral and from C-SPAN on the day of and the day after, and it's just kind of, there was so much hoopla around this man's death, and what we knew of Nixon was that he had lied to the American public and prolonged the Vietnam War. And we just couldn't figure out why he was all of a sudden the great statesman. So we wanted to show another side.
So maybe we can take a look at that clip right now.
If it's not ready. And Frank's on this show too. Frank, our director, is appearing in the background if you watch carefully. Military. What else? Nixon was complicit in setting up some other stuff to stop the protest movement, right?
Well, actually, he started, or he was heavily involved with COINTELPRO, which is a counterintelligence program to hire FBI and CIA agents to infiltrate Socialist Workers' Party, the Communist Party USA, but also many of the peace groups and the Black Panthers. And in fact, the Black Panthers was Nixon's favorite group to hate. He explicitly went out to break up the Black Panthers, and during Nixon's presidency, 40 Black Panthers were killed mysteriously, and
Right, and he also they sent agents into quote-unquote subversive groups like communist groups and leftist groups and anti-war groups to break them up. And they said, I think the book we read said that 1 out of 6 members of those groups was a federal agent by the height of the anti-war movement. Okay. So we very rarely get calls on the Flying Focus voicemail line during our programs, but interestingly enough, Moss, remember we got a couple of calls on that. People were like, "Oh, I can't believe you're doing this. How you should show some respect for this man." I don't know. I thought there was a lot of respect going on. We just wanted to give a full picture.
Well, we did show that Nixon called for universal health care long before Clinton ever even was out of college or whatever. And, some of the things Nixon did was, they had some merit, but the things that he did against the country overall really, well, watch the video. But what else do we have? Now we have...
Gail, with another clip.
Yes, I have brought a clip that the show was called Cut the Bull, and there were numerous labor issues that we talked about, or that were shown on this clip. The first part of the clip was shot at the Peace and Justice Fair, which is an annual event where environmental and other labor groups, neighborhood, all kinds of social action groups get together, educate people, talk, and just enjoy the day. I'm going to show a clip about GATT, which is still an issue that will be coming up in the legislature. Go ahead. Roll it.
Okay. We want to know about GATT. Why should we oppose or love GATT?
Well, you shouldn't love it. You should oppose it because GATT is essentially, it embodies a philosophy that places the expansion of trade and commerce above all other values, be they environmental protection, protecting the safety of our food, labor standards and labor rights, any kind of economic equity between nations and among and within nations is undermined by this sort of ideology of laissez-faire and of deregulation that GATT embodies. GATT is essentially geared toward, it's sort of a corporate bill of rights. It allows corporations and countries to challenge regulations and laws that they find inconvenient for the expansion of trade.
Well, does the Congress leave any recourse to challenging for the people, for the states or the government to challenge it if it opposes our environmental regulations?
That's the big difference between the GATT as it currently exists and the new GATT that will be passed if we don't let Congress hear about it this summer. GATT as it currently exists allows, it includes, it's an international organization that has a panel that judges these kinds of disputes in Geneva. And if they determine one of our environmental laws or one of our food safety laws to be trade illegal, then we are told we have to repeal that law or face economic sanctions. But currently, there's no enforcement. We can ignore that without consequence. Under the new World Trade Organization that will be created, we won't be able to. It's going to be a right now it takes unanimous consent for one of those rulings to be implemented. After this, it'll take unanimous consent for it to be appealed, so that it's going to have a lot more power to enforce these kinds of decisions.
And now PC Peri will show us a clip from some footage that he took in Yugoslavia.
Thank you, Gail. Thanks for doing a nice piece before me. This has been a year of a lot of learning. Not only learning techniques, but learning context where we fit into things that are happening in the world. We got a much better global appreciation for stories that are happening here, how they're affecting people in other countries, how what happens in other countries affects us. We spent a good portion of time this year working on former Yugoslavian issues, and you'll see some of those clips now.
This is Yvonne Simmons with Flying Focus Video Collective. We're now in the Republic Square of Belgrade, and a vigil of the Women in Black has just finished, and we've been part of that. The Women in Black are against the war, working for peace, and every week they're here in this square in a silent vigil, giving out information to the people about the war. There are women from all over former Yugoslavia, from Bosnia, people who've had their relatives killed, and they're here working for peace.
We always try to put things in context, and we learn more and more each year what putting things in context means. And we also like to, as much as possible, when we're telling what's going on, and if it's bad, and if that means the sky is falling, to give not only hope, but actual examples of how other people are changing the circumstances they find themselves in.
Group of feminists from Zagreb, from different groups. Most of us from Shelter for Battered Women decided that we should do something about problems of refugee women. So we started a center at a time when there was a massive hysteria about raped women. And at the very beginning we decided that we don't want to work only with raped women, because every refugee or displaced women has a lot of problems with their everyday life besides the rape. These women are uprooted from their societies, from their communities. They've been through a lot of traumatic experiences during their flight. They lost everything, and now they're here somewhere in the refugee camps or individual lodging with friends or families or in rented apartments. And they have a lot of problem, something like they have to deal with loss.
The similarities of what happens in a war-torn society does not differ that much from what we are going through now. Not to say that we are in a war-torn situation, but the preliminaries are very similar. The closeness, the similarity between refugees in war zones and those who are in urban homeless situations in this country is so similar, it's very painful. And I've since come to look at this whole documenting of what we saw there as close to the title of the movie that's playing now. It could happen to you. Well, I've been thinking very much, even before that title came out on screen, it could happen to us here. That which is going on in former Yugoslavia is so similar to what could happen in any country, from destabilization, that it bears examination to hope that it doesn't happen here. And it would only not happen here if we take measures to make certain that it doesn't. Participative democracy means you and me acting.
Thank you, PC. Now, the cuts I'm going to show tonight are from 4 pieces that I've done, all of them having to do with either Latin American issues or socialism, the kinds of things that you're not going to hear in the mainstream media, because in the mainstream media you're going to get a very negative picture of socialism, also a negative picture of some of the things going on in Central America. Let's see, that's right. Okay, the first clip is a discussion that we had about socialism. I called about 5 or 6 different groups. Basically, it was stimulated by the idea that we keep hearing in the press that socialism is dead, and I'm thinking, if socialism is dead, why are there at least 5 different socialist organizations in the United States functioning and active? So I called several members, and 3 representatives of socialist groups came into the studio, and we had a very interesting dialogue about socialism. Let's roll the tape, Jerry.
The strength of their socialism is that it is a very informed socialism, and that people in Cuba that I have talked with, actually I've only talked with one by the phone, but Cubans that I've talked to have been very informed about the world situation. That's important to democracy. You can't have a democracy unless people know what the facts are.
I think we can be hopeful, and we can organize people, and we can commit people to left goals and to socialism, but that's a long process. And I think we need to be patient with that process and not kind of rush to any kind of pure sort of notion, of how that's going to happen. I think that being a revolutionary and being an activist is a lifelong thing, and we're in it for a long time. So.
The second clip I'm going to show tonight is an interview that was conducted by Raul Velasquez, who works with us from time to time. Raul is from El Salvador, and he is interviewing Grace Taylor, who is the staff person for Portland Committee for Solidarity in Central America. Grace was an observer at the elections in El Salvador. So here's a brief cut from that interview. Roll tape.
Do you think the Arena win because the people support to Arena?
Well, Arena won the presidential runoff election in the second round by 68% of the people who voted. However, there was a very, very low turnout, partly because of large-scale disenfranchisement through the electoral process, through the registration process. And so really this mandate that they have is based on a vote of only 33% of the population. So clearly they don't have a strong majority.
The next cut is going to be from a studio production that we did on Media Lies About Cuba. And the guests that evening were Sarah Rivero and Karen Diora. So we'll cut to that tape.
Castro seemed to think that if he were to step down, there would be many people that could replace him or would replace him.
I think, again, that's a belief. There's a belief that somehow that there's no one in Cuba who's been educated in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And I would say they're more prepared to lead their country as a people than we are.
Well, it's a kind of media perception that's kind of foisted on us that Castro is Cuba and Cuba is Castro, and that's all there is to it. Everything else is somewhere down underneath it.
I'd like to see the state of this country if half the oil that we receive from the Middle East were not sent.
Right.
Okay, now the last clip is actually from two different tapes, and it shows different ways that people can act to express and to educate the public about the kinds of things that are going on in other countries that we don't hear about in the press. One of them is by a demonstration in which we carry signs and hand out literature and talk to people on the streets. And the other is by actually going to countries with caravans, as the Pastors for Peace have gone to Cuba. The first one is about the School of Americas, also called the School of Assassins, which trains military dictators and military people in Central America. And the second cut then about the Pastors for Peace Friendshipment to Cuba shows the caravan leaving Portland to go to Cuba.
Naval military dictator in Latin America, and probably they went to that school. It's been in operation since 1946. It's ridiculous that we have all the problems we have funding educational systems in this country, and we can spend that kind of money to educate killers and dictators and assassins.
They're murdering people. They're training people to be assassins.
I think it's kind of an odd idea to train people in order to support democracy by killing and torturing and murdering.
Compañeros poetas, tomando en cuenta los últimos sucesos, en la poesía quisiera preguntar, me urge, ¿qué tipo de adjetivos se deben usar para hacer el poema de un...
Okay, now it's Dan's turn to talk about some of his work.
Yeah, and I too have worked on a lot of foreign affairs issues on the Flying Focus Video Bus. And last year I did a couple of shows about Iraq, and I said on the first part of the show we started because the Gulf slaughter was going on in the Middle East in 1991, and the people who formed what became Flying Focus were very upset that mainstream media wasn't showing any opposition whatsoever. And even today, now that there was this whole to-do where Saddam moved his troops close to the border, and there was a whole showdown where they sent more troops in. Now they're saying Saddam blew his chance to get the sanctions lifted, even though he's pretty much complied with all the resolutions. Well, we had some guests here in the studio who spoke about what the conditions are like in Iraq now. One of them is an Iraqi who's moved here to America, and he lives here, and his mother was in Iraq during the war, and she lives there now. She's in the United States for a little while, and she visited our show. And the other clip is from a forum about Gulf War syndrome. It was on a show I did called Alternative Update, where once in a while I show clips from a bunch of different things and kind of act like a newscaster and show a little bit of what's going on in Portland and around the country. So here's the first clip about Iraq, whenever you guys are ready back there.
I lived under those bombs that were coming down, and golly, I don't think all the bad was on Saddam's side, and I don't think all the good, certainly not all the good. But I don't think all the bad or all the good was on the American side either, to come in and just destroy a country, just to hit and hit night after night. I don't know how many, almost a month, they bombed before they started their ground war. They destroyed the bridges, they destroyed the poultry farms, they destroyed everything. And not only bomb it once, but bomb it twice.
I also addressed the issues of what was going on with the Gulf War here in the United States. And on one show I did a short segment about the Persian Gulf War syndrome, which was addressed at a forum in March of 1994. And here is Dr. Jeffrey Beasley from the VA in Portland talking about the mysterious diseases known as the Gulf War syndrome.
About 30% have the same spectrum of symptoms, and the ones I'm seeing most frequently are fatigue, sleep disturbance, sometimes mild rashes. Most of those can be explained by other reasons so far. Joint pains, and some people have diarrhea.
So here's one of the Gulf War veterans who came to this forum, and she had some questions about people who had miscarriages and birth defects with their babies. And while she was at the forum, and I wish I had done a better job when I was taping this because the audio is not very good, so you're going to have to listen carefully. But she finds out right here, she's reading the brochure at this forum on camera, and she finds out that she had received this anthrax shot. She wasn't supposed to try to have children for 3 years, and nobody told her that. And so this is a very tragic occurrence, and it's pretty typical of what our government does to our veterans. So take a listen.
Really concerning to me is I've been hearing reports of reserve units who have had 13 out of 15 pregnancies ended in miscarriage or birth defects.
I just now read in the pamphlets that were given out that you're not supposed to try and have children after you're given the anthrax shot for 3 years because it can cause birth defects. Well, I took the anthrax shot and I've had a miscarriage and no one told me that. No one ever told me that.
So, like I said, it's incredibly tragic, and this is the kind of thing that goes on all the time. We try to bring it to you at home. I'm sure you might have heard about the Gulf War syndrome in the mainstream news because they talk about it and they give it lip service, but these are the people who are suffering, and we hope to bring you more issues like this. I'm going to pass the camera back over to Moss now, who's going to talk about a couple of shows he worked on.
Well, 1994, some people might have said that the buzzword of the year was the internet, and everybody hears about the internet, and you know, it's like describing the elephant. What is the internet? I don't know. It's got computers and it's people hooked together and so on. And a lot of people, just because it is a buzzword or because they think computers are cold or something, like shy away from actually exploring this possibility. So part of the shows that I'd like to do, or I have done, kind of just, it's like show and tell for computers. You know, this is what a computer, these are the guts of the computer, or this is the internet, and here's how you hook up to it. And two of the shows that I've done, first one showed, you know, how you can kind of put together a computer and how you can get a cheap computer to hook up to the internet. And then the second one was talking about Mosaic, which is kind of a program that puts a friendly face onto the internet. So let's take a look at those programs now. Since the IBM first came out with its 8088, which is its first real home PC, personal computer, they've made huge advances. When it first came out in 1980, it cost $3,000 for what you can now buy in the nickel ads, in the cheapy ads. You can find PC Juniors and PCs, IBM PCs, 8088s, that basically either is a PC or an IBM XT. And you can find those for $50 sometimes. We can go up here and go to the town hall and take a look at what that site is. The town hall is, when you get to this, you realize that the information superhighway is still pretty much an unpaved dirt road in terms of flashiness. They have this nice big sign, Electronic Town Hall, but then down at the bottom they have these small little letters, coming to Toolkit Fall in 1994. So there's still quite a bit of work to be done before you know, you just even begin to have something like an electronic town hall. Down farther, they have a description of what the electronic hall will be. You're invited to participate in the largest interactive electronic forum of its kind. During the coming inaugural town meeting, you'll join as many as 10,000 other federal employees in a comprehensive discussion of the National Performance Review's recommendations and actions for the reinventing of government. Note that it says as many as 10,000 other federal employees. So in fact, this is really designed to be accessed by federal employees who might be on the internet. So you can see I kind of do things where you put a face on what the internet is, because really the internet is a great thing for getting your message out, and it's basically it's like a true anarchic society in the best sense. And another thing about a true anarchic society is a collective, and that's one thing I'd say that Flying Focus Video Collective is we each put in our input into each show, and so we get the best things out of each show. What else do you think about it?
I don't know. Maybe we should roll credits while we each say a little bit about Flying Focus. It's probably a good time, right? So if you
we can do that later too.
Oh, yeah.
So another word would
collaborative.
Be collaborative.
Not just with ourselves, but with the community, with other activists.
I'd like to say that contrary to rumors, all rumors to the contrary, that the revolution will be televised.
Okay. I like that we were talking about making the theme of this show connections, and that sometimes you may not see why the internet has anything to do with accountability or what's going on in Cuba or Haiti, but there are connections. Think deep and think long and hard about it.
And do it yourself might be another thing for.
Yeah, pick up a
camera. We're not
We're
professionals here, folks.
We're amateurs. Yeah, you can pick up a
Try
camera.
this at home. They never say that.
And it's not 1995. Cable access is free.
Still.
Still.
Not for long.
You know the ads that go.
Yeah, no, if you want to join, we implore you to call our numbers, which are probably on the screen right now, and we also implore you to join us. And if you have a camcorder and have been videotaping stuff about public policy issues, give us a call.
Boost our full credit.